to the Veterinary Financial Podcast, where we discuss financial freedom and professional success. I'm Meredith Jones, a veterinarian and financial planner for vets. Our guest today is Jason Balara. Jason wears many hats. He's a board-certified surgeon, and he is the founder of Lark Capital. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Meredith. I'm really excited for this conversation today. It's a topic that's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, so Jason had published a Facebook post and then also an email recently that I found really interesting, and it was all about perfectionism and related to perfectionism and how it relates to personal finance and how perfectionism can sometimes hold us back. And certainly vets have a bit of a reputation for being perfectionists. And so to start with, Jason, I'd love for you to just give me some thoughts on why you feel like this is an important topic, especially for veterinarians.
I would say I come from, sort of a world of believing in perfectionism. And what I think I've learned is that there is no such thing as perfectionism, as being perfect. And there also realistically is no such thing as failure. And so if you take those two concepts away and figure out what can I do in the middle, I think that's really helpful. And I mentioned to you before we started recording, but the reason I think why this is a big problem in the veterinary world and maybe in other medical professionals and maybe in things like airline pilots, you want your surgeon, you want your doctor, you want your airline pilot to be perfect, right? Like I just had a coast-to-coast flight yesterday. Like, I'm glad that the pilots did everything right. Like, I'm very happy with that scenario. When I'm in the OR, I want to be perfect. And I think what I would say is what I really like to use, striving for excellence rather than perfection, because it probably won't be perfect. Like I said, I'm not sure I believe that even exists. But ultimately, in the veterinary world, we're all trying to have the absolute best outcome we can for our patients. And so that puts you in a space of wanting to be perfect. Plus, that even doesn't even account for the many, many years of schooling and training where you're told to be top of your class and you got to get an A on every test. And if you want to go to the next level, you got to continue to do, have this level of excellence or perfection to carry you through. It's a hard thing to walk back. So I do understand where it comes from. And it's something that I've personally struggled with balancing in my life over time.
Yeah, for sure. And so one of the things that you had said in your writing is you said, all or nothing is killing your money goals. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and give me a couple of examples?
People may not know what Lark Capital does, but essentially we're a real estate and small business investing firm. We take on investors, and it's been really interesting because I've, over the last 5 years now, I've talked to a lot of people. And when I talk to people from the veterinary world, the conversations are very different than when I talk to people from, say, the business world or people who are they're comfortable being investors. And so I think one of the things that I have come up in those conversations over and over again is this concept of not being ready. So when people aren't ready or they think they're not ready, then what they do is nothing. And nothing moves you backwards. I think people think nothing keeps them where they are in this safe space, but it actually moves you backwards. So if you're doing nothing, you're losing, you're declining, you're kind of going in the wrong direction. And so that's where that comes from. If you do nothing, then you're definitely not going to achieve whatever those goals might be. And so I think that's kind of where that comes from.
Yeah. And so that comes into, thinking about missing opportunities with investing, saving for retirement, saving for the tax bomb at the end of student loan forgiveness. That comes up a lot. And then even also delaying starting a business or starting a practice. So all of those can be opportunity lost potentially. Yeah, and I love some of the examples that you had given, like, okay, if I can't invest this set amount, right? Like if I can't invest $500 a month, then I'm not going to invest anything. And so the tax bomb for student loans, that's one of the places that comes up because one of the things I work on with clients is figuring out, okay, how much does that tax bond need to be? How much should someone save on a monthly basis for it? And sometimes it can be anywhere from $400 a month to $1,000 a month, sometimes more if they're farther along in their career and haven't started saving for it yet. So, and it's like, I always tell them, you don't have to start from zero and go to $600 a month. You could start with $100 a month, $200 a month, but just start.
Absolutely. The tax bomb, that's a funny one to me because I hate the name because it just implies something terrible is happening, right? But in fact, something as amazing is happening. You're getting free money. You're literally getting free money and you have to pay some tax on that free money. And so people treat it as if it's this terrible thing. That one I still can't wrap my head around. I cannot come up with a scenario why that makes sense, but it's literally free money when you get your loans forgiven and you have to pay X percentage on that. The other thing that I'm sure people don't know this, but in real estate investing, one of the big things, like if you look at like family offices, institutional investors, one of the big things they're looking for is the tax benefits of the investing. Forget all the rest of it, right? It's just the tax benefits. You realistically probably could invest enough that you would have enough tax benefits to offset that tax bomb, if you will. Like there are so many different strategies to make your life better over time that, again, I mean, this is going to come up over and over again, but it's just getting started. And I agree, like something is better than nothing. So if you can't start at X number of dollars, then start at half of X and kind of build from there. It's like a muscle. You know, you go to the gym, you exercise, your body gets used to that exercise. You do a little more weight the next time, you run more miles, whatever it is, and you just get in the habit of doing those things and realizing, because I'll tell you, like, it sounds silly, but it's like once you start doing it, you really have drunk the Kool-Aid and realize like this is actually pretty amazing. And if I can stick with it for, I would say to people, like, give it 5 years and see what happens in those 5 years. And you are going to be shocked at how effective it can be, even just making a little bit of an effort into, you know, sort of the investing in your future.
Yeah, and the other place that comes in is I'll talk with people who they say, well, I might retire on time, right? I might retire at 65, like the typical age people think about. But then sometimes they say, well, I might want to retire sooner than that. And then it's like, okay, that impacts how much they should save, where they should put their money potentially. So it's like, okay, well, if you're going to retire early, then you might be looking at not just putting money in retirement accounts, but putting money into the same type of account that we use for the tax bond, the brokerage account, non-retirement investment account, right? But if you just put a little bit in there, then you start that habit. And then you can always add on. And like you said, you can see, okay, how this goes over 3 years, 5 years, and how much that grows. Then you might be motivated to continue that habit because you've seen the effects of it.
Yeah, you can really create sort of a game out of it. And you can set up, there's many different ways to have a non-retirement brokerage, but I'm not sponsored by Robinhood, but I love the Robinhood app because it's an app on your phone. You can say, I want whatever, $50 a week, a month, whatever you want to do, to go in there automatically. You can go in and buy, whether you want to pick individual stocks, you can do mutual funds, they do crypto, whatever you want to do, you can have it there and have it be an automated process. And then you get to sort of play the game of, how am I investing this money? And it's just easy to do. You just have to start doing it.
Yeah, and you can set up a brokerage account with Fidelity, Vanguard, Betterment. Yeah, there's lots of different ways, and you can automate money going into that account, and make sure that money is getting invested as you go. And so lots of different ways to make sure you automate it. And if you automate your savings or if you automate your investing, you're going to end up saving more or investing more than if you don't automate it. So I'm a big fan of automation. Yeah. And I was thinking about, because we're talking about different types of accounts, even just a high yield savings account. I have seen people out there who, whether it's on the Facebook group or whether they've been clients of mine, I've seen folks who are they're waiting to open the high yield savings account until they have time to research the perfect high yield savings account. And really, these accounts are mostly just all the same. Like the interest rate can be a little bit different, but otherwise it's just pick one and let's start. Because in the meantime, they're missing out on 3.6 to 4% interest every month because they're waiting to have the perfect time to have a perfect research session on an account that it's not even necessary. So that's another thing I've seen. I've also seen even folks not contributing to their 401k with their employer because they're waiting to research the investment options, and even sometimes missing out on the employer match because they're like, I've got to go research these options. That happens a little more often with private practices where you have to actively choose the investment options sometimes versus some of the corporate practices where they're like, hey, target date fund here is going to automatically go in here. But it is something that I see as well, where it's like you could pick any of those options and you can always optimize it later and you can always change the investments later in a retirement account, and they're not going to charge you taxes on that when you're changing the investments. So something else to keep in mind there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you talked about this also, this perfectionism with budgeting and with consumer debt pay down. So can you talk about a couple of those examples too?
Yeah. I think so much of it is fear-based. And I think a lot of times, I told you at the beginning, like I've come to this maybe realization that I don't think perfectionism exists. I also don't think failure exists. So what happens in between, and this is where this stuff comes in, is like people are afraid of not being perfect because they think not being perfect means failure. I would hazard to guess, if we had guests on this and asked them define failure, what does that mean? Most people don't even know what that means. It's just this like looming thing over their head, and somehow not being perfect equates to being failure. And if you're saving for retirement, if you're trying to pay down a credit card bill, there's just this constant worry about like, what if I make the wrong decision? And I said before, like, no decision is the wrong decision. Waiting is the wrong decision. The most reliable tool we have, whether that's related to investing or debt pay down, is time. And so if you invest something, it should go up over time. How long that time is, not predictable. But if you start investing earlier, you're going to be better off than if you start investing later. There's no arguing that fact. You will have some investments that go up. You will have some investments that go down. That's part of that game. And so you just can't stop. I mean, one of the things I have worried a lot about, and we've had a lot of challenges in the real estate space. It's not the only market that has had challenges, but in the real estate space, when interest rates kind of shot up, it caused a real distress in the real estate market overall. And people got really excited about investing in real estate when it was a super hot market. And then when things cooled off, everybody stopped and they got afraid. And it really ties into that Warren Buffett quote about be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. Even maybe simpler than that to me is if you invested when it was exciting to invest and it didn't go great and then you just stopped, that's the only thing you experience. You only experienced it go poorly. But if you just keep investing over time, you just keep paying down your debt over time, you just keep working towards whatever those goals are over time, it will level itself out. And in the end, you will win. It sounds almost too good to be true, but you can look at every market, every asset class, everything over time, like it just goes up. Think about 2008, the great financial crisis, real estate lost 30 to 50% of its value in a very short period of time. Anybody who rode through that and kept that real estate for the next decade made a ton of money. A ton of money. It went up dramatically past even where it was before it dropped. Stock market, you can look at it the same way. We have all those little ups and downs, but it's still, I think, Maybe I don't know what it is today, but it's the highest of all time. Like it's virtually always the highest of all time because that's what happens. And people get worried when it drops down by 30%. And that's when you should be buying. But ultimately, you should just always be investing.
Yeah, that time value of money is super important. And investing more when you're younger if you can. There's that quote of the best time to start investing was yesterday. The second best is today, right? So yeah, so another thing that I really liked is you said your financial future is built on imperfect action, not perfect plans. I thought that was awesome. And so what do you think is the enemy of financial progress?
Good is the enemy of great. I don't know who said all these things, but definitely you can go on ChatGPT and say, give me 20 quotes around the value of time and, growing wealth, or there's a lot of them because it's true. And if you start something and you keep going and you don't quit, it's very, very, very unlikely that you're not going to achieve success. And that's where the imperfect action thing. If you're just trying to come up with the perfect plan to get rich, it's not going to happen because you're going to keep planning. You're going to stay in that. So then again, you're back to doing nothing. If you just start and you work hard and you pivot, and yes, there will be sacrifices, you will achieve something very, very big when you look back over it. Again, another one of these quotes, but I like it is you overestimate what you can achieve in a year, you underestimate what you can achieve in 5 or something. The point being, you'll think, I can get all this done in the next year. And the reality is that's probably not realistic. But that's where most people give up. They say, oh, I tried this for 6 months. I tried this for a year. It didn't work. And then they just stop and go back to doing nothing. And the fact is, if you just stuck with it for long enough, you'll win virtually every time.
I was just thinking about how much schooling we all had to go through as veterinarians, and I was thinking about, okay, so you start with just going from living from one exam to another. That's kind of how I rolled during college, right? It's
That's
like
how most people did, yeah.
yeah. It's like you live from one exam to another, and then okay, then you complete an academic year, you have your summer, you do it again, right? And there's always this set trajectory. You're going from first year, second year, third year. And then for the rest of our lives, there's not a set, like, this is what you need to do and when you need to do it. And I wonder if that, because most of us went to college for 8 years after all the other schooling, I wonder if that plays into this perfectionism, because it's like there was a plan, there was a map of this is how your life is, from age 0 to 26 or 28 for a lot of us.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. I think the other part of it is with all those years of schooling and being directed as to what the next step is, and this is where you should achieve because it'll get you here. Nobody talked about money ever. Nobody talked about the financial implications of it. Everybody said, okay, do well in high school so you can get into a good college, so you can get into a good vet school, and then maybe you get into a good internship and you get into a good residency, and then you're free. Well, guess what? You just did all of this for 8, 12 years. You took on hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. I mean, frankly, we could argue that you shouldn't become a veterinarian because of the financial burden that puts on you in student loans. But I think if that's what you want to do, that's what you should do. But you have to think about, like, someone should be talking about this to these, I'm going to call them kids because I'm old, but like the kids coming in, through college and vet school, like someone should be teaching them finances. Someone should help them understand. I think most people get student loans and they're like, I'm just going to take, what's the maximum I can take? I'll take that. You probably shouldn't do that. Like figuring out ways to budget and live on less while you're in school will help you in the long term. That's outside of investing. Most of the time you're not going to have the extra money to invest while you're a student or while you're in residency. But one thing I used to train residents when I still worked at a W-2 job, and I used to tell them, like, look, you guys are your surgery residents. You've been either paying to go to school and be trained or making just enough to live for the last 12 years. you're going to come out and you're going to make more money than you've probably ever seen in your life. Keep living like a resident for 3 years and invest all of it, and you will literally set yourself up for life. The same thing goes for like people that are, I'm sorry if this is contrary to the debt-free veterinary group, but it's amazing. Like people pay off hundreds of thousands of dollars in school loans in 3 or 5 years. That is amazing work ethic to make all that extra money. But had they invested it, they'd actually probably be in a better position than being completely debt free, unless you plan to continue to do that for another 3 to 5 years to then put all that towards investing. But realistically, you should invest first, use those investments to pay the what we call, I don't know what you refer to it as, but like the safe debt, student loans, mortgage, things like that, versus you do want to pay your credit cards off. You do want to have if you have high interest personal loans and things like that, like you want those gone. But the simple stuff, especially something like student debt that might actually get forgiven over time, like take the free money. Take the free money and go invest all that extra, all that hard work that you're doing. I just think understanding the order of events that we should shoot for is really, really important. It's super impressive to pay off your student loans in 3 or 5 years. Like I'm sure that looks and feels amazing, but I'm 20 years into my student loans. I don't even think about them. I don't know that they're going to get forgiven. I don't think so. I don't even think I'm in. I think you helped me and looked like, but regardless, if I was going to get free money, I would take the free money. I pay the minimum, and yes, it means I pay some interest. But like, if you are paying 5, 6% on your interest on your loan, but you can invest in something that's going to get you 8 or 10%, you're winning. You're making money on that. Like that's a win. Don't worry about the interest. That's what the ultra wealthy do, is they basically live on debt. And you have to be careful. I'm not saying you should over leverage everything in your life, but those things like mortgage and school loans, the reason you can take out a 30-year loan is because that's kind of what the expectation is for payback. It's okay to let that ride for a little while until you build up the other types of wealth or you start your business or whatever. Like it's just, there's better use of your money when you think about the long term than just paying down every safe debt even that you have.
Yeah, totally agree. And that is one of the things that I talk with clients about is those trade-offs, right? Because I will have, and there are some vets who they are going to enroll in an income-driven plan because they can't afford to go with another repayment plan, right? So there's that component, and that's real, and that makes a lot of sense to go for forgiveness in that case. But also, there are folks who they're making a decision about, okay, I'm either going to pay the loans off aggressively, like you said, in 5 years, 5 years, something like that, or I can max out my 401k, I can start another investment account, I can get a Roth IRA going. And if you run the numbers, it makes a lot of sense to, as you said, take the free money, enroll in an income-driven repayment plan. And the loans actually, it's crazy. And I run these scenarios all the time. There are situations where you would pay less on the loans by getting them forgiven than if you paid them to zero, especially paying them to zero in the time frame that somebody might be able to do that, right? Because sometimes it's not 3 to 5 years. Sometimes it's much longer than that. And so there are these trade-offs where, yes, people who decide that they're going to pay the loans off aggressively, they are neglecting other things. And some of those folks, if you get down into the details for the debt-free vets group, sometimes those folks haven't saved for retirement, and that's not good. So that's another thing that I do also have people keep in mind when they get imposter syndrome about seeing those stories, is there are some trade-offs there that might not be the trade-offs that that particular person would want to prioritize instead.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to do what you feel is best for you. But whatever you choose, do the math, talk to someone, have some sort of a plan and start executing that plan. Like this, goes back to the whole perfectionism thing, but it's like in the real estate investing world, usually the investments are large chunks of money, typically $50,000 type minimums, which is a scary number for people to invest. I get that. But it's not that the people I talk to don't have it. They're just afraid that something could go wrong. And so they don't do anything. And I'm like, it's fine. Don't invest with me, but do something. Don't just have it sitting there doing nothing. Like, if you've done all of the work to have that amount of money or more saved up, get some education for yourself and find a way to put it to work. Like, find a way to make it. Everybody's going to have a different financial situation, but like, yeah, some people they can't afford anything but, hey, I got to pay my payments right now. If you're in that scenario, you got to figure out how to make more money. If you're in a scenario where I can just scrape by on the bills, you got to figure out how to make more money. If you're making plenty of money, you've got to decide, what am I going to do with it? What is my prioritization? But having a plan, not a perfect plan, but something that you can decide, hey, I like the idea of X, and I'm just going to work on that right now as I learn about my other options. Like, there's plenty of information out there to figure out what you want to do. So I think it's just, don't get stuck in that, making that perfect plan. Just pick something and start.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think is another factor there is people should expect that their plans are going to pivot around their lives. You can have a plan that you have decided is your perfect plan for the next 3 years, and then either that plays out the way you expected it to, or it doesn't. And people decide, okay, I'm going to pivot my career. I'm not going to be on call anymore, or I'm going to pivot. Jason's probably got examples there.
I was like, you're talking about me right now? Yes, that was exactly what, or that was a big part of what caused me to pivot. Yes.
Yeah. So, or I'm going to start a family, and now maybe my investment priorities are different, right? Or they decide they're going to buy a house, and 5 years ago they didn't think they were ever going to buy one. There are lots of things that can cause people to pivot their strategy, and I think just knowing that that's okay is a part of this as well.
It is, yeah. And I sit on here, I talk on my own podcast. I'm talking here with you, like, and I say, these are the things I think you should do. Like, I made all these mistakes. I made all the financial mistakes you can imagine. Like, the first time I invested in IRA was because the CPA I was filing, this was like soon after my residency. Like I said, had more money than I'd ever had before, had no idea what to do with any of it. By the way, I finished my residency in 2008. If I had started investing in real estate right after my residency, I wouldn't have to work anymore right now. I have made all of these mistakes. Please understand that. But the CPA said you should invest in an IRA. It'll save you on your taxes. And I said, okay. And so I put whatever the minimum was at the time, or the maximum was at the time, for 2 years. So it was like $10,000. For the next 10 years, it just sat there literally doing nothing, because I didn't know I had to actually do something with that money in the IRA. I had no idea she didn't tell me more than that. She said, you should put money in here for a tax write-off. And I was like, okay, sounds smart. And it did that, but I didn't know that I could have been making money all that time by having it invested there. So it's like, just talk to someone. I will get on the phone with someone. You want to talk about all the mistakes I've made with money? I'm happy to. I'm really just trying to let people know, like, this is what your options are. You should be thinking about these things for sure, and pick a thing and start. Don't think about this like you do when you're working on a patient. This does not have to be perfect. It has to be action.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, yeah, talking with someone, either a trusted colleague, someone who has been there and has made the mistakes, or like you, and being generous with your time and reaching out and saying, yeah, let's talk about this. Or whether it's meeting with a financial planner, whether it is meeting with another trusted professional, so that you can make these decisions and make it a little bit easier. Some of my clients, they work with me because they want accountability, and that's a component of it, of like, okay, we're gonna work on your financial to-dos, and that sometimes that's during a call, sometimes that's between calls. So accountability is a piece of it. I have had folks who they're actually making all the right moves right already, but they want someone else to look over it. and make sure they're not missing something. And so I think there's a value with that. And there's also folks who are like, I know I need to be doing something other than putting over $100,000 in my high yield savings account, but I need help figuring out what that should be. That's the kind of thing that I talk about with folks. So yeah, I think that's really, really valid, is just, yeah, feeling like you don't have to figure out all of this yourself. There are people who help.
Yeah, I think that's another very veterinary thing. I mean, I'm lucky because I'm a specialist. Like, only thing that anyone expects me to do is surgery, and I can do that well. But don't ask me to vaccinate your pet. Don't ask me. I won't know how. I do not know what the right vaccine schedules are. I don't know what the right dewormer protocols are. Like, I don't. But then people expect their general practitioner veterinarian to know everything about everything. And I think we almost perpetuate that, within ourselves, right? Like, it's okay to not know something because you're not a cardiologist or a surgeon or a dermatologist, or, like, it's okay. That's why there are specialists. And it's the same thing in the world of finance. It's okay to ask other people for help. You don't have to figure it out on your own. You should have some baseline level of knowledge so that you don't get taken advantage of. But at the same time, like, I don't know anything about crypto. If someone wanted to ask me about investing in crypto, I will point you to other people. I don't know anything about it. I don't invest in it myself because I don't know anything about it. But that doesn't mean it's bad. I know people that have made a ton of money investing in crypto. Like, there's certain things that people know about, and you can find them, make relationships with them, and use that to your advantage, and then, kind of pick whatever seems appealing. And if you decide you don't like that one after a little bit, well, again, you can pivot. It doesn't have to stay the same. Feel free to make changes, I guess, is what it comes down to.
Yeah. So you also talked about an all or nothing mindset. Talk about how that might impact someone's future, just financially or even in their careers.
Well, you either go to vet school or you don't, right? So that is almost in and of itself, it's all or nothing. And that's kind of that's going to be similar in other medical professions and things like that. But the fact is, I think a lot of people do that, go to vet school, and it's a decision most of us make as children, I think. Most of us say, I really love animals. I'm going to be a veterinarian. I like taking care of them. I want to fix them, that kind of thing. And then you do everything and you're caught up in this do, achieve, 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 this level of perfectionism. And then you finish and you're like, sometimes these clients really aren't nice. I have $300,000 of school loans and I don't make enough money to have $300,000 of school loans. Like, you start to notice some of these things. And I think there's a big issue with burnout. Veterinarians have the highest suicide rate of any profession. And I think some of that is just because that all or nothing mentality. You can still be a veterinarian and do something else. You mentioned it. Like, I was very, very driven. I love doing surgery, but I got to a point where it was just a job. I didn't really like going to work anymore. It was just, this is what I do. I'm a surgeon. I have to stick here. When my son was born, I really, really resented being on call because it meant I was either gone or I was too tired after being on call, after spending, the night in the OR or something like that, to be present. And so I made a shift into doing something else and adding something else. And a lot of times people now, when I talk to them about, Lark Capital and our investing world, they're like, are you still doing surgery? I sure am. I just do it on my own terms. I do surgery because I want to and I like it, not because I have to. I'm not on call. You mentioned wearing many hats. I just became a licensed California contractor. I'm going to be buying construction companies and doing that. I've been in and around construction since longer than I was a vet. But you get in that all or nothing mindset, and it's the same thing I think about. Sort of, I mentioned drinking the Kool-Aid in the investment space. Like, once you realize you can do other things, it's kind of awesome. My wife is a tech, so we work together. We have a mobile surgery business. But my son, when I got my contractor license, he actually asked me, Daddy, if you're going to be a builder now, who's going to help mommy with surgery? And it was like, it was the it was very, very funny. But at the same time, I was like, this is that mentality. You can only be one thing.
Yeah, that's the best.
You can be as many things as you want to be. It's okay. Like you can be as many things as you want to be. You can prioritize your time, in whatever field you want. I have a lot of jobs now, but it's like dad and husband first. The rest of them are mixed in somewhere below that. And I am building a life that allows me to spend time with them when I want. Ultimately, when I talk about investing, I'm investing for time. That's really the goal. And so the all or nothing, I don't want to retire. I like the things I do and I like creating and I like building and I like creating a game out of, all of this stuff and seeing where I can take it. But I don't want to stop that at some arbitrary age. I turned 50 this year. Like if 65 is retirement age, like I don't feel like I'm done in 15 years. Like I really have things I want to do and that I'm excited about doing and my kids are young and I want to do things with them and so it's just that's what it is. I guess that's it. The all or nothing. If you say I can only do it this one way, I can only do this one thing, then you're not allowing yourself to think outside of that little box.
Yeah, and I think that's important too, because I think every veterinarian who has done non-clinical work of any sort has probably gone through some stage of feeling like, okay, if I do non-clinical work, does that mean that I'm less of a doctor somehow? So if anyone out there listening is thinking about pivoting their career or going, maybe they want to be part-time on the floor and part-time doing something else. The world is wide open and yeah, I was just thinking about the whole wearing different hats thing and thinking about you actually wear hard hats sometimes probably now. So
Right. Yeah, all the hats, surgery caps, this hat,
yes.
hard hat, it's just it makes life really fun. Doesn't make it easy, but it makes it fun. I work more than I did when I had just a W-2 job, but also like I look back and think, when I had a W-2 job alone and no kids, I thought I worked hard. And now I have two kids and three businesses and I'm like, what else can we add to this? Like I just cut out things that don't matter to me. Like I don't watch nearly as much football as I used to. I don't, you know what I mean? It's priorities, and one priority is investing in mine and our future. And look, you have to look at it as there's no such thing as perfect, and also there's no such thing as get rich quick. You're gonna have to hang in there for a while. Realistically, probably a decade of hard work. But the thing is, you've all done it. All the vets listening to it, you've already done it. You've already shown that you can hang in for a decade. And so just hang in for a decade with something else, and you'll be in such a better place than staying stuck. That's it. Like it's just, we've had 3 very hard years in real estate. Probably the hardest, most extended period of time in my life. I'm still happy with the way that my life is structured. I'm still not going to go back to a W-2 job. I will just figure it out and I'll do more things and I'll make it work. But it's so much more free in that scenario than it is living in this perfect plan, this perfect thing, the all or nothing. It's hard to make the shift, but it's worth it.
I love what you just said. And I mean, that's going back to being an entrepreneur and having that spirit and having that willingness to try different things and building for yourself the space to be able to do those things. And I think that's a piece of that too, is some people need to build up more savings before they are going to feel comfortable making that sort of shift. And that's totally fine. So you talked about the 1% financial rule. So can you talk more about what that means? And I'm sure there's probably more than 1% financial rule out there, but the one that you mentioned.
It's probably better stated as just a 1% improvement rule. You could use it in your finances. You can use it and it really just, it goes back to what we've been discussing in terms of doing something, right? So nothing is definitely nothing. Doing nothing is definitely nothing. And as I said before, I do believe that moves you backwards. Sometimes people will say, oh, if you're 1% better each day, you're 365% better in the year. I'm not exactly sure that the math works out right on that, but that is a thing I've seen thrown out there. But the whole point is doing something, right? Like you're supposed to put some X percentage, say, to your 401k. Say it's you have a 3% employer match, and people are like, well, I can't really afford to give up 3% of my salary, so do 1%. Do something and get that portion of the employer match. That's free money. Like take every free money opportunity that you have. And really, again, it's talking to people about this. The 401k, there are things I really like about it. There are things I really don't like about it. But you have to figure out what is good for you in any investing scenario. And it just goes back to that 1% means do something rather than nothing, and you'll move in the right direction.
I always like to say that financial planning is a marathon, not a sprint. I think that's the case with your finances in general. It's like you have been saying, just start somewhere. Then over time, we can build toward excellence in personal finance. And whatever that means for you, it means something different for everyone.
That's perfectly said. It does mean something different for everyone. And it has a lot to do with where you are in your financial journey, probably has a lot to do with your age. I 100% believe like it's never too early to start, it's never too late to start. But if you start investing when you're 20 versus when you're 50, the same outcome requires a much more aggressive approach at 50 than it does at 20. So this is why I told you I've made all the mistakes. Like I did start investing later in life. I wish I started investing, right out of my residency, but because of that, I've been pretty aggressive with it. But I also now look at it as, okay, well, my kids are 6 and 4. They have lots of time. So maybe I'm just laying the foundation, right? Maybe I'm just setting them up for success. And that means educating them on these opportunities even more than it means handing them a bunch of money. Handing them a bunch of money does them no good for probably more than 6 months. And then it's realistically knowing what to do with money over time that we can really have an effect on our families' lives. And if you don't have children, that's okay. Like other family members, a charitable cause, whatever you feel is the right motivation, I would use that to kind of help push yourself forward and get going.
All right. Yeah, this has been awesome, Jason. So I usually end with asking, what is your best advice for our listeners? But you've given so much great advice already. So I'm going to ask it a little bit differently. So is there anything that you haven't mentioned that you like to dole out as advice, whether that's about money, whether that's about career, anything else?
Yeah, I think we have touched on some of the really what I find are important points. I think getting started really, and I know we've said it, but I think it's worth if someone listens to only this one part of this podcast, getting started for whatever that means. You need to get started to move forward and find a mentor in some capacity, whether that's someone like yourself as a financial advisor, whether that's me, you just want to have a conversation with a guy who's made some mistakes, but also put a lot of effort, blood, sweat, and tears into, kind of figuring this stuff out over the last 5 years. I think I'm not a certified financial planner or advisor, so I should say that, but I have done a lot of research for myself and have people like yourself that I can connect people to if they want to have those conversations.
All right, awesome. And so we'll put your contact information in the show notes. And so what's the best way for folks to get in touch with you?
Probably shoot me an email, jason@larkcapital.com. Probably the most direct. There's no other Jason Balara, so you can find me on LinkedIn or whatever too, but that's the easiest way.
All right. Well, this has been awesome, Jason. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed the conversation. Super important topic for people.
Thanks so much for listening. My mission is to help you take control of your finances and build the life you envision. If you'd like to see how financial planning can support your goals, visit allvetfinancial.com and click the Book Now button to schedule a free intro call. Until next time, take care and continue your path to financial success. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered individualized financial advice. If a specific investment is mentioned, it should not be considered a recommendation or endorsement to buy or sell the investment. All investments involve risk. Past performance does not guarantee future results. You are encouraged to seek the advice of a financial professional before implementing any investment strategies discussed. Yay, compliance.